All right, you got the intro ready?
Yep.
Okay. All right. That sound okay right here?
Yep.
I just readjusted the mic a little bit.
It's a little cooler, but it's good.
Okay. How about this?
Much better.
Okay.
That's where it was.
All right. All right. I'm ready when you are.
Hit it.
Count it down in 3, 2, 1.
What is up? This is the do it again.
But 6 months behind podcast.
I got it. Okay. I did it wrong.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
What is up? This is a special episode of the 6 Month Behind podcast where we're here to discuss diversity in Marvel Comics and Marvel Unlimited. I'm Pat.
And I am Sean.
And we're just here we're not even special characters this week. We're just ourselves.
We are concerned citizens of the Marvel Unlimited universe.
We don't sell Marvel Unlimited. We don't have anything to do with Marvel Unlimited. We're just here because we're concerned people about the all the diverse characters that make up the Marvel universe. Don't I sound concerned?
No. But we actually are concerned, and we are gonna discuss
there's an on switch that's going to be flipped at some point, and you will hear my anger and my concern over this issue and the sincerity of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because at some point riding home, we were discussing the outline of this podcast. We were like having a phone conversation. We're like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we actually reached the point where the on switch got flipped. And I just started raving like a lunatic. We're like, okay, yeah, it's coming.
It's like save it for the show. But yeah, we're going to discuss what happened this week in Marvel news. Real quick, just a quick plug. You can visit our website at 6monthsbehind.com. That's the number 6 months behind. You can also email us at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That's the number 6 months behind@gmail.com.
Would you like to recap what the Marvel editors did, where they were, and how they did it, and how they created this multimedia fiasco that they have stepped into for us, Sean?
So in case any of you haven't heard already, Marvel Vice President during a summit with their retailers, I assume it was like retailers and Diamond Distributing. I would assume that Diamond would be there. Marvel Vice President David Gabriel if you didn't know, Marvel's comic book sales have been in the dump for how many months now? Since at least October.
A year.
Yeah, roughly a year. And they were having a discussion with their retailers at this summit, and understand it was a very candid atmosphere, but nonetheless, what he said was we heard was people didn't want any more diversity. He said, I don't know if that's really true, but that's what we saw in sales. So basically what he did is he said, our sales are so bad because we put all these diverse characters out in these books, and now they're not selling.
Do you have the exact quote?
That was the exact quote.
Okay. All right. I'm just make sure. And the other mistake that they made, and I'm not going to keep interrupting your recap, was they invited a reporter to the meeting with them. Okay. Now, Marvel's meetings are usually held at secure locations by themselves. For some reason, while making this idiotic comment, they decided to invite one reporter from a blog to come along and participate in the meeting. So when he made this comment, there was a reporter in the room. Please continue.
Yeah. So it kind of became a thing. It got out there. At one point they backed up, they walked back the comment and kind of tweaked it a little bit. They released a public statement. Here, I'll just read the statement. Discussed candidly by some of the retailers at the summit, we heard that some were not happy with the false abandonment of the core of Marvel heroes, and contrary to what some said about characters not working, that's in quotes, the sticking factor and popularity for a majority of these new titles and characters like Squirrel Girl, Ms. Marvel, The Mighty Thor, Spider-Gwen, Miles Morales, and Moon Girl continue to prove that our fans and retailers are excited, emphasis theirs, about these new heroes. The statement goes on to say, our new heroes are not going anywhere. We're proud. We're excited. We've also been hearing from stores that welcome and champion our new characters and titles and want more. They've invigorated their own customer base and helped them grow their stores because of it. So we're getting both sides of the story. What they're saying is they don't understand what their fans want.
Yeah. Now, here's the other side of this. This was a retailers and direct marketer meeting. Now, very briefly, here's how Marvel sells comic books these days. When I was a child, and understand I'm 52, you bought comics off a spinner rack. You know, you bought it off a shelf like you see in Barnes or Noble or at a Walgreens or
it was a drugstore.
A drugstore these days. Okay, there would be comic books. Now, even today, when they don't sell those magazines in a drugstore, they rip the cover off and return it to the publisher. Okay, that's literally what they do with it. Cover's torn, it's returned to the publisher. That's what they would do with comic books in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They would rip the cover off, it would get returned to Marvel or DC. In the late 70s, early 80s, they started selling direct to comic book stores. And originally it was Diamond and two or three other wholesalers. Distributors, wholesalers. And eventually it's just Diamond these days. There's one or two other minor players, but it's really Diamond.
Yeah, they've got the market.
Now what happens is guys like Bob at Bob's Comics in Memphis and Jason at Comic Seller here in Memphis, they order comics. Now, when they order it and they say, I want 10 issues of this X-Men comic, I want 3 issues of Moon Girl, I want 2 issues of Ms. Marvel, they buy them. Okay? They're ordering them. 3 months later, it ships and arrives, and they pay for it. If it sits on a shelf and they don't sell it, and in a month or 2 months, they got to put it in a box, it belongs to them. There's no returning it to Marvel, returning it to DC and saying, hey, it didn't sell. They buy it. Okay, now that's the beauty of the distributorship, and that's why Marvel, when it came along in the early 80s, Marvel and DC fell in love with it because there was somebody ripping covers off of comics and returning it to them. They know exactly how many to print. They know exactly what their number is before they even go to print. Now, the flip side of this is, if somebody like Bob or Jason looks at something like Red Wolf, let's say, that came out about a year ago. They don't know the author. They don't know anything about the character. They just see the title and description.
Yeah, it's literally on a black and white page in a column.
It literally is. It's a giant previews magazine about the size of a phone book. You can go into a comic book store and buy it.
Yeah.
And they've got to sort through this thing with literally hundreds of comics in it. And they've got to figure out what to order every month and how much money to spend and what to put on their shelves. And they're going to figure out whether or not, okay, number one, do I want to order Red Wolf? Number two, if I put it on the shelf, is anybody going to buy it? And number three, do I want to spend money on it and hope somebody comes along and buys the thing? I don't know the artist. I don't know the character. What am I going to do with it?
That's why most places do a pull list.
Right. So if you or I know what it is, okay, all right, I want this. So he knows, all right, Sean wants one. I'll order one for Sean. If he sees 3 or 4 people ordering, he says, all right, I got 4 copies sold. Let me order an extra one.
Yeah, maybe I'll order 10.
Right. Maybe I'll order, I got 5 sold. All right, here I got 10 sold. Let me order 12 or 15. Okay, but if he doesn't see anybody ordering it, he doesn't care how much Marvel's hyping it. He's not going to buy it. Right? So it doesn't get bought. That's how distributorship works. And that's the people who were sitting in there complaining about Marvel sales and complaining about these characters. Now, what Marvel is doing and what this editor said is, all our sales are bad because we went to these characters. We went to Riri Williams. We went to Ms. Marvel. We went to all these characters away from our major characters. And that's why all our sales are bad. And that is the biggest pile of steaming cow manure I've ever heard in my life.
To be fair, that's what they heard from some of them. They did hear from some retailers that were praising those diverse books, but the thing that got picked up on was David Gabriel's I don't know, scapegoating diverse comic books to explain away bad sales.
You know, seriously, I'm pulling up the numbers.
Yeah. Well, what happens is when you really get into it, if you look at their sales numbers, it's not just the diverse books that aren't selling. In fact, the diverse books are selling pretty well compared to the other stuff.
When this came up, I went into it objectively and said, okay, what's the problem here? All right. Is this really, I went into it objectively with an open mind and said, is this really a problem, and where's the problem at?
Right.
Here's what I found. The Avengers titles, and I went back 2 years. I didn't go back any further. The flagship Avengers titles are down 38% between 2015 and 2017.
3017?
The highest 2015 to 2017, they're down 38%.
I was like, wow, you know future comic book sales. That's useful.
Yeah. In 2015, in February of 2015, they sold 178,000, let's call it 179,000 books in February 2015. In February of 2017, those same Avengers books sold 110,000 copies. That's 70,000 copies less. Dude, that's got nothing to do with diversity.
Yeah, that's your Iron Man and your Thor and your Captain America and all the other favorites that we have that are Avengers these days.
In 2015, there were 3 Avengers books in the top 50. In 2017, the highest Avengers book was Avengers number 39, which was number 50, and Avengers number 4, which was number 53. Okay, they literally didn't have Avengers book in the top 50. All right, let's move on to the X-Men. The X-Men are down 58%. In 2015, the X books total 227,753 copies. That's 228,000 copies. In February of 2017, that's 98,000 copies. That's a loss of 130,000 copies.
Yeah, 130,000 people didn't buy your comic book who were buying it before.
That's a loss of 58%. In 2015, the X-Men were 18, 24, and 27 in the top 50. In 2017, the highest book was number 60. 60. And you're blaming these sales on diversity? Seriously? Seriously. So this has nothing to do with diversity.
So tell us what some of the diverse books are selling.
The diverse books actually are not bad, because in 2015, I'm just going to read them off. In 2015, it was Spider-Gwen at number 3, Amazing Spider-Man was at 3, 6, and 8. Spider-Woman was at 49. Spider-Man 29 was at 51, and Spider-Man and Deadpool was at 75. In 2017, you've got Amazing Spider-Man at 13, Amazing Spider-Man and Deadpool, or Spider-Man and Deadpool at 48, Gwenpool at 81, Gwenpool at 124, and Spider-Woman at 163. Now, those sound bad, but if you look at the number of copies that are sold, they're down some, but they're actually not down. No, wait a minute. Wait. I'm sorry. Those were the Spider-Man numbers, which are down 63%. My apologies. The Spider-Man numbers are awful too.
Yeah, they're not good either. But remember, when they were good, Peter Parker was not Spider-Man, he was Doc Ock. Now, that's not necessarily a diversity issue, because Doc Ock's a super white dude. He's the creepy white dude everybody doesn't want to be. but it was a bold editorial decision that worked out. Unlike Captain America being a Nazi, which has not worked out at all.
Dude, Captain America 4 came out last week. And run down the list. I've got the page loading with the sales figures on it.
Yeah.
Run down the list of what he did in Captain America 4 last week. All right, I'll do it.
Okay,
he killed the Hulk. He killed the Hulk.
Yeah.
He tried to kill every hero in the Marvel universe. He reaffirmed his worship to the Red Skull.
Yeah, in a very Darth Vader Emperor-esque fashion.
He basically did what you were hoping for was that there was some good left in Steve Rogers. There's not. There's not. And one issue, he tried to kill every hero in the Marvel universe and manipulated the death of Bruce Banner. And one issue, you have no sympathy left for him, and you're wondering why his sales are bad.
Yeah, because you turned Captain America into a villain. Yeah. I understand taking bold editorial choices. That was just a bad one. And I understand that they set up a whole event around it that's going to be Secret Empire that we'll get in roughly 6 months. But, at some point you've got to admit that it's bad. When you you had Secret Wars, you relaunched Secret Wars to all new, all different Marvel. It wasn't all that new and all that different.
And they keep saying, trust us, trust us, trust us, that this is going to work out at the end of Secret Empire, and we know where we're going. You're not going to have any readers left when you get there.
Right. And, people used to complain about event fatigue, and I didn't really buy into that for a while. But Marvel, I'm fine with events. What I don't like is that every event that Marvel has reorders the whole universe. And it doesn't really do anything.
And it doesn't ship on time.
But that's the thing is, I'm walking into Bob's Comics here in Birmingham, and I've got a pull list, and I've been reading this event, and now they're launching a bunch of new books, and I've got to sit down and figure out which books I want to no longer buy and which books I do want to buy based on the same information that Bob has regarding what to order. Oh, and this is all 3 months in advance.
Yeah.
The direct market is old and broken, and they need a new way to market books. They need a new way to assess their sales and what's working and what doesn't. And G. Willow Wilson, who is the author of Miss Marvel,
Kamala Khan.
Yeah, Kamala Khan.
Who's a Muslim. She's a Muslim.
Well, you know what? It's probably my favorite young adult comic that they're putting out right now. I like quite a bit of them.
Female Muslim, and I love the book. Okay, I'm just gonna say I love the book.
It's great. It went from one of those books that I was iffy on when I first started it to one that I'm always excited to read. And I can't, I can't say that about any of the X-Men books. I can't say that about at least half of the Iron Man books that are out right now. We're about to get Riri Williams and Dr. Doom as Iron Man. So I'm interested in that, but I feel like I don't know. We'll see where that goes. But dude, that one where we're learning about who his real mother is, oh my God, that's the worst thing I've read in ages.
Written by Brian Michael Bendis.
Yeah, written by Brian Michael Bendis. But so right now, their two strongest selling books are The Almighty Thor, who is Jane Foster, a woman, a strong woman, and Black Panther, written by Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's he's considered one of the best African-American writers of our modern times. And you're going to tell me diversity doesn't sell. I think what the problem is that you've had a divergence in the direct market and the book market. So tell me about the book market real quick.
Or
Or do you know about the book market?
What you want to know?
How does it differ from the direct market?
You've lost me. But I'm looking at 3 pages of sales figures. So,
It's fine. The book market is essentially direct sales to consumers in forms of like stuff they put in Barnes and Noble and Books a Million, some of the stuff you find in Target, particularly the Scholastic. If you were a kid, if you were a kid in the 90s, you remember every couple of months you'd get this little booklet from Scholastic with a bunch of neat books in it. They sell a lot of books that way. In fact, they sell a lot of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur that way. But the Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur don't sell very well in the direct market. And, you know, I'll admit at $3.99 a pop, I'm not going to walk into Bob's and buy Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, even knowing what it is. So I think if Marvel will will diverge the markets in the way that in their strategy of marketing, they can market to print direct market, print book market, digital markets, whatever, and market to them specifically rather than just treating them all the same. I think that's what they need to do.
All right. I'm going to try and make this as simple as I can. And if you're looking at the number with me, look at the number on the spreadsheets.
Okay.
Up the top in February, last month of sales that were published by Comicron.
Yeah.
Which was 2017. There was $23 million in comic books sold. That's comic books sold. Of that market share, and I want everyone out there to follow this with me, of that, Marvel owned 37.46% of that market share, which means Marvel sold $8,628,276 worth of comic books in February. That's all. Okay. $8,600,000.
They made $8.5 million in February.
That's what they sold. That's what that is what they grossed.
For comics.
You get 1 million people at $10 a head subscribing to Marvel Unlimited, and you got 10 million bucks.
Yeah.
With no printing cost, no ink cost, no, you're not taking Diamond's not taking a cut. God bless Bob and Jason. They're not taking a cut. You don't got shipping costs. You got nothing. Okay.
Right.
You got nothing. Right. $10 a head. Dude, that's Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah.
If you're selling it online for $2 a copy, you still got nothing. You just, there are so many ways to make money with this besides going through the distributors and hanging on to that $8.6 million right there. There's so many ways to make money with this. You sent me a comic that I read from the Overwatch game.
Yeah.
All right. That is so simple. And Marvel's fooling around with this with the Infinite Comics. And it's like they're dipping their little toe in it, just saying, yeah, maybe we want to do this, maybe we don't.
Well, they did these motion comics a few years ago, and they did the whole Astonishing X-Men run, Joss Whedon's run, which is iconic if you've never read it. But that stuff's cool. That comic I sent you is cool. Does it take a little more work? It probably takes the same amount of work as a normal comic book, I would think. Maybe a little more, but it was a really cool way to read a comic book. It was, and if you're not familiar, there was lots of motion. It had sound to it. There was some minor voice acting. It showed you panel by panel and flowed in a certain way that directed your eye, and it wasn't confusing to read. It was immersive.
To blame this situation, to blame these numbers on minority characters is just ludicrous.
Absolutely.
It is just the most ridiculous thing anyone has ever said. Marvel's got many problems. They've got the fact that their product is shipping late. They've got the fact that their product is $3.99 and DC's is $2.99.
Yeah.
They've got the fact that they have shipped their last two major events on late, and it's caused people on stuff on the shelf to not be familiar with to people.
Right.
They've got event fatigue.
Right.
They've got disassociation from what's going on in the movies to what's going on in the comic book shelf. They've got a multitude of problems, and Squirrel Girl ain't it.
Squirrel Girl's doing really well. She's one of the most popular characters out there. In fact, you had Anna Kendrick on Twitter say, "Hey, you want to make a Squirrel Girl movie? I'll do it." I mean, come on.
They got a lot of problems. That ain't one.
Yeah, it ain't. I mean, and I thought about the other day, all of the new all the characters that I'm really enjoying reading. We read these comic books every week. We read all of them, just about. And I was thinking about who am I enjoying and who am I not? And I thought, Kamala Khan's Ms. Marvel is one of my favorite books. I like Cindy Moon. I like Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. I love Squirrel Girl. It's the funniest thing they're putting out. It's hilarious. I forget her name, but Silver Surfer's girlfriend. That book has been great because of her. Not just because of her, but the way that she works with Silver Surfer and the cues that they're taking from the Doctor Who series and applying it to Silver Surfer really make her a great character.
And if you want to blame some of your sales, then blame CM Punk for what he did with Drax.
Dude,
somebody blamed that Ant-Man fiasco. I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around here, and the minority characters just aren't it.
Okay, so here's the thing. Marvel's ongoing superhero books average 24,000 copies sold, just on average. The average ongoing diverse title is 22,000 copies. That's a deficit of 2,700 copies. That's 11%, I think.
There you go.
I think.
Yeah.
Dude, that's not enough to tell that's not enough when I'm looking at your Iron Man sales and they're in the crapper.
Yeah.
So, and you know, they market through the direct market doesn't work. They're marketing to retailers, and that's great, but the retailers they're not basing decisions off of marketing necessarily.
Because here's the thing, and here's what we haven't discussed yet. If you've got a teenage girl or comic books are the old boy network. Okay. Yeah. You go into a comic shop and you're going to see mid-20 to mid-50 men, white men. That is what you're going to see. You may see some African American men in there, but you're going to see white men mid-20 to mid-50s. Period.
Yeah, if you just walked into 100 comic book shops, you're going to see more white nerdy dudes than you are any other type.
Last January, when I had my shoulder surgery, the last issue of Secret Wars came out. I told Amanda, I said, "Hey, run by Jason. Will know what you want. Pick up Secret Wars #8 for me." She said that they were sitting around playing board games. She said literally all conversation and everything stopped when she walked in the store because a girl walked into the comic book store.
When you see the joke on The Big Bang Theory where Penny walks into the comic book store and everything stops, that's not really an exaggeration.
It is not. So to expect Bob to put Squirrel Girl or Moon Girl or one of these comics on his shelf and then expect teenage girls to come in there and find it, it's not going to happen. You've got to find another way to market it. You've got to market it in another way to
market it differently.
Yeah, you've got to market it directly. You've got to market it somewhere else because it's not going to get sold in the comic book store. It's just not.
And from what we've heard from Comixology is that it would sell well digitally through Comixology or Marvel Unlimited, and it would sell well through the Scholastic initiative through schools. In fact, that's probably, if you want young adult readers for your young adult comics, that's the best way to get them. Do you know how many books I bought from that thing throughout my time in school? That's where some of my favorite books came from. And dude, come on, man. You've got to market your stuff better. So look, while Marvel has always made the best decision, hasn't always made the best decisions editorially. That's what I'm trying to say. They haven't always done that. To me, it's become obvious that Marvel's ability to effectively market their comics is hampered significantly by the archaic nature of the direct market. And Marvel should expand the metrics by which it evaluates its books, just like the TV studios have been forced to do in the age of streaming. So if they do that, they can put in place unique marketing strategies for each platform, whether that's digital, direct market print, book market print, whatever. You've got to reevaluate your marketing strategies and your distribution networks. You got to understand, there's not as many comic book stores around as there used to be.
They're absolutely not.
You're trying to sell more books in a time where there are fewer outlets for you to do it. And yeah, you're making decent sales off of the stuff at Books A Million. But if I walked into my local Books A Million and go to the comic book section, it's much bigger than it was a few years ago, but it's mostly older stuff.
We could do a whole nother podcast on the comic book crash of the mid 90s, another one that came along in the mid 2000s, all the comic book shops that have closed up, that would be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I want to see Kamala Khan continue. I want to see Squirrel Girl continue. I want to see Cindy Moon continue. I want to see the Black Panther continue because I like all that stuff. Dude, Ta-Nehisi Coates is the reason I'm reading Black Panther. I've never read a Black Panther book before, but when I heard he was doing it, along with Brian Stelfreeze doing the art, I said, I'm going to read that. And I love it. And I don't know half of what's going on in the book, but it's still, the writing is so good, I just can't not read it and be in love with it.
I know.
I don't always understand what's going on with Kamala Khan or, some of the stuff that's happening, especially when they get into like Muslim traditions and stuff, which, by the way, the book and the author do a good job of, like, you get a little annotation about, this is a thing. And I don't know, I read that and I think, okay, I'm learning something. It's not a lot, but it's something. And, we're in an age where we're going to have to learn to deal with these people because they're not going away. We have to learn, instead of, I'm going to get off on a whole political thing, but instead of turning away Muslims, we have to embrace them, and being able to relate to them is how we do that. And reading a comic book and a character like Kamala Khan helps us do that. Sam Wilson being Captain America helps us understand what, someone, two nerdy white dudes like us, it gives us a bridge to understanding what it's like to be an African American in America.
Dude, reading that Nighthawk book helps us understand.
Yes.
And the fact that it got canceled after 6 issues is
it's a crime.
A crying shame. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, and some people don't like that sort of thing in their comics. Fine. Then go read The Walking Dead and watch someone slice up zombies, because that's what these comics have always done since even the Stan Lee days. And I think that they're not worth anything if they don't do that, if they don't have a message at the end of the day. Yeah, sometimes I just want to watch Wolverine and the Hulk punch each other in the face, but sometimes I want moral stories. So, in short, Marvel's got to get their act together and stop blaming diversity for their mishaps. And I hope this whole thing has been like a wake-up call to them. It certainly garnered them enough attention. So I hope that makes people who can do this, like Joe Quesada and even Jim Lee over at DC, take a step back and go, okay, clearly people want these diverse books, but people also want to read Tony Stark as Iron Man. So how do we market to those people who want Tony Stark as Iron Man? And we also want to, how do we effectively market towards those who want to read Moon Girl? Because that's not is what I think is the problem at the end of the day. The marketing strategies and getting those products into the hands of the people that want them is where they're going wrong. And I hope they can figure it out.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah. You know, and you and I are the biggest fans of Marvel out there, and we don't like hammering on them.
I don't like hammering on them, and I don't like hammering on them on issues like this, but I hate seeing smart people do stupid things.
Yes.
And that's what they've done here.
Yeah. So if anybody at Marvel happens to be listening at this, just know this is not, we're not hating on you. We're just concerned, and we want to continue reading your comic books, and we want them to be good, whether it's Steve Rogers and Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, or whether that's Kamala Khan and Doreen Green.
Yep.
Because it's big enough for everybody. That's about all I got to say on the situation.
That's all I got, man.
Cool.
All the notes and all the articles we've referenced will be on the website, the new and improved website at 6 months behind .com.
And you can email us if you have any thoughts on this yourself. Please feel free to email us at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. The number 6 monthsbehind@gmail.com. And that's going to do it. We'll be back for our regular episode later this week, and we hope you come back and join us.
Peace.